Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey, Nate, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm super pumped that you're here because my audience probably doesn't know you, but we'll get to that in a second.
No.
But I'm pumped about like this online technology, cyberbullying, like dangers of social media, like all of the things. So tell my audience a bit about you.
Oh, yes. So my name's Nate Webb. I am a professional high school counselor. At least I was the last few years. On the side, I've been doing speaking in schools since about 2019. Back in 2018, I started a little page on Instagram called Bullies Be Gone. Told a lot of my experiences growing up, getting bullied relentlessly, and a lot of the tools and mindsets and things that helped me get over it. And that grew into me speaking in schools about bullying prevention and about the dangers of online social media. And then in 2020, I partnered with Save the Kids, a nonprofit that I partner with to get into more schools and widen the audience and help make an impact. And it's just grown into a wonderful thing where I get to talk to kids and help out parents and help people raise resilient kids in a tech heavy world. And I love doing it. And thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. And I love that you say like in a tech heavy world because, we talk so much about, kids, like you just got to get them off their phone. Like the teenagers, you've got to get them off their phone.
Right.
But if you
Right.
look around, you see adults constantly, like people out for a walk, they're
Right.
out for a run and they're like checking their watch or they're
Well, and
checking their phone.
technology's not going anywhere. Like
Right.
we're not going Amish here. Like we're not getting rid of our smartphones. Like the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
Like, yes, delay is the way. Don't get me wrong. Delay is the way. Delay
Mhm.
giving your kid a smartphone as long as you possibly can. But
Mhm.
once the cat is out of the bag, cat's out of the bag. So we got to start teaching our kids and our families and us adults how to have tech healthy boundaries and tech
Mhm.
healthy relationships so that our kids aren't affected as much. We got to start educating. I hate all the fear mongering I see from other fellow advocates that are just like, ooh, technology's bad. I'm like, yes, there's scary things online, but y'all, it's not going anywhere. So let's teach them
Yeah.
how to use it.
Right. And so that's what I say too, like to people that their kids, because I talk to stepmoms that have like their stepkids already have technology. Well, and now it's too
Right.
late. We can't do anything. And I'm like, it's not too late. It
Right.
is not too late. So what would you say to somebody that says it's too late, they already have an iPhone, or it's too late, they already have a phone or a tablet or whatever?
Well, it's like, okay, this is a great learning opportunity then. It's a good teaching moment. Okay, they already have an iPhone. Let's talk about as a family, meaning, and I'm not, especially with blended families, I'm meaning mom, dad, stepdad, stepmom. I'm talking all 4 to 6 of y'all adults and all the kids sit down and talk about, okay, what do we use what do we use our iPhones for? What do we use our personal devices for? What are acceptable ways to use that advice? Kids, what are your input? And
Mhm.
what are unacceptable ways to use that advice? And then together you can come up with a tech family plan where the kids say, here are the things we don't use our devices for. Here are the things we do use the devices for. Here are the boundaries we have around the devices. And you'll be surprised. Kids can come up with some really good boundaries for the devices. And when you sit down and communicate as an entire unit, here's what the expectations are going to be in each home. Here's what the boundaries are for our devices are. It helps with continuity across both homes so that kids aren't, locked down cell phone Nazis in one house and then free reign zebras wherever they want to do whatever they want to do in another house. But it's continuity across houses. But then on top of that, the kids buy into it when they give input.
Yeah.
I talked to one family where the mom could not get the kids to follow rules for the life of her. They were, using burner phones and they were downloading crap onto their phones when they're at school and deleting when they got home because it was always just here's the rules and follow it because I said so.
Mhm.
And then when she changed that mindset and just sat down with the kids and like, okay, you make the rules. What are acceptable uses for the phone? What are unacceptable uses? And the kids are like, we probably shouldn't have our phones in our bedroom. It keeps us up to like 1 or 2 in the morning. So maybe we should have those charged in the kitchen. And she's
Mhm.
like, okay, we'll write that down. And the kids followed it because again, they're the ones that make the rules. So to answer your question shortly, for those, step parents who are like, I don't know what to do. You guys got to communicate and talk. like as an entire family unit, and lay out expectations and boundaries, and when the kids have input, then they're more likely to follow that plan.
Okay. So two things. I love that you started with that, like getting input from the kids, because um my situation, like I spent the first year of our marriage like Googling how to get divorced because it went to hell in a handbasket pretty damn fast. And I was like, I didn't sign up for any of this. And what happened was our whole house was like chaotic, like looking from the outside in, like you probably wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
think that, but I felt it. And so we did house expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
our marriage counselor had said same thing, like get buy-in from the kids. And I was like, whatever. I was raised my way or the highway. And then when we did the expectations, we got buy-in from the kids. Same thing, like they had a
Yep.
lot more
Yep.
strict ideas or thoughts on what should be happening at the house. And then when we had a technology issue, same thing. We did, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation about what this is going to be like, because it worked so well with the house expectations.
Right.
And yeah, their ideas or their ideologies of like what their phone should be used for, what their laptop should be used for, were a lot more strict than what we thought. But we went with it, right? Because here's something I want to say to you, the listener, is it's easier to have stricter rules and then give out the rope, right? Rather than to let
Yep.
everything out and then bring it back in, because that's
Yep.
really hard.
Yep.
And the only thing that I can see my listener balk at, because I would have too, like in my early years, is it's really hard to get both houses to sit down and come up with a plan, right? There might be a high conflict situation,
Right.
or one house doesn't
Right.
really care, or they're more concerned about being friends with the kids or whatever. So in our situation, we were the house that had technology limitations. And
Right.
so we were the strict house, if you will, but we didn't let the kids. The one thing that we were like, absolutely not, you cannot have your phone in your bedroom. You've got to get sleep. We had
Yep.
iPhones. So I could see, because I was the crazy person, I could see at our house, you guys were going to bed after 9:30, like the phones were on the counter and you were
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, you were getting sleep. Where when
Right.
you're at the other house, you're not. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, it's not going to be possible, Nate, for me to sit down with the other house, that's okay. I just want to put that out there. Like in
Yeah.
an ideal situation, it would be awesome for both houses or for everyone to get along and like come up with a continuity plan of like what
Right.
technology looks like.
Well, in that case too, okay, talk with the people that are just in your house and say,
Yeah.
okay, when you're in the other house, what are the expectations? Okay, how can you uphold the expectations you have set for yourself, regardless of what house you're staying in? What if you're having sleepover with Becky down the street and things like that? Well, let's talk about ways that you can uphold these values that you,
Oh,
as a child, just told me that you want to uphold. How can we uphold those no matter what house you're in?
that is so
How,
good.
how can we help you with that?
Where were you like 7 years ago?
Um, I was in high school. No, I'm kidding.
Perfect.
Um, but yeah, like talk with the kids. Okay, do you want to be able to follow these rules in another home? Do you want to be able to function like
Perfect.
this and no matter what house you're in? How can we help you with that? What
Oh,
remind can
love
we
it.
send you a reminder? Can
Yeah.
we set reminders on your phone? Can we send you a little text at 10:30 p.m.? Hey, just a reminder, put your cell phone on the kitchen table. Love you. Good night. See you in a couple days or whatever. Things
Oh,
like
that's
that.
perfect. Yeah.
Ask your kids how you can help them to uphold those boundaries that you want to keep in your home across into other homes.
Very good. And I like putting the onus on the kids, like giving that responsibility to them, because yeah, you agreed to this. I like that. Even if it might. And so for the listener that's listening, because I can hear like, well, that's never going to work. You're right. It may never work. And that's okay. Like it, again, in a
Right.
perfect world, the kid would take the ownership. This isn't like a end all be all, but yeah, I love
No,
that
there's a
idea.
lot of trial and error involved in this process. Mostly error. Lots of trial
Absolutely.
and error and mostly
100%.
error. But don't stop trying. That's the thing.
Mhm.
Try one thing, it didn't work. Recognize what didn't work, tweak it and keep tweaking until you find something that does work. It's probably not going to be your perfect world, where in a perfect world we would do X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to make some compromises,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you should just not do anything.
Yeah, I agree. 100% totally agree. Okay, so let's talk age appropriateness, because that's something that I see. Well, what's age appropriate for kids?
Oh, that there. That's fun. So what do you mean, like app, like content, like talking about sex talks, or like what?
D, all of the above. And I
All
think
of
it
the
depends. And like this is hard, right? Because it's like it depends on the kid too, right?
right. Right.
So it's such a loaded question. But yeah, you can go in like we did. We went in and put on, well, I did, let's be honest. So that
Mm-hmm.
totally helped my stepmom's status. I went in and put restrictions on websites or YouTube content, because you don't want your 8-year-old, 9-year-old watching necessarily R-rated stuff
Right.
or, like,
Right. My rule of thumb always, no matter what your child is consuming, if you haven't consumed it first or reviewed it or looked into it, they should not be watching it or consuming it without being supervised. So like your kids definitely should not just be on YouTube Kids unsupervised in the other room. Because A, you don't know what ads are popping up, but also YouTube Kids, people have beat the algorithm there and they're putting some fishy stuff within those videos itself. Now, when we ask what is age appropriate, you know your children better than any reviewer does. You know what they can handle. You know what you are comfortable with. You, as a parent, have a gut instinct that is right 90% of the time.
Mhm.
So when you're wondering what's appropriate for my kid, I'm not sure if I should show them this. You probably know the answer is probably no if you're asking that question because it's
Mhm.
making me feel uneasy. But my always go-to answer is watch or consume whatever you want you're thinking of letting your kid watch or consume, or at very least if we're talking about movies and like visual content usually for screens,
Mhm.
just look it up on IMDb. That is one of the safest, easiest ways to look up to see what things might be on there. And so you can see, okay, for example, okay, Turning Red, Disney movie that came out not too
Mhm.
long ago.
Yep.
And it caused quite the controversy because
Mhm.
it talked about periods and
Staying
puberty
out
for
late.
girls
Mhm.
and disrespecting your parents and all this stuff. And a lot of parents are like, I would never let my child watch this. And I'm over here saying, well, okay, if you want to be the one to talk to your kid first about periods and you haven't talked to them about it yet, yeah, probably you don't want to watch that with them yet because you don't want Pixar to be the one to teach your kid about their changing body.
Mhm.
If you have, and you can use that as a place for them to ask questions, awesome sauce. You can watch it with them. But when looking at the world of what's age appropriate and what's not, obviously R-rated stuff, I stay far, far, far away from. There's no word why I believe that R-rated stuff is appropriate for kids of any age and most adults as well. I don't like R-rated stuff. Makes me feel yucky inside. Call me a Martin Mormon, whatever you want. That's how I feel. That being said, with restrictions, I think it would be appropriate to put on a password lock because most streaming services, especially Netflix, you have to get the password to watch stuff beyond a certain rating.
Yep.
And I think PG-13 is a good line for that rating. 90% of G and PG stuff is okay, but like I said, consume it or review it before you put it in front of your kid. That being said, you don't want them to accidentally be able to click on a PG-13 movie that potentially, because PG-13 movies now, they have your one or two obligatory F words that 90% of them are going to have, and they're allowed a certain amount of sex and or nudity. And so just because it's PG-13 doesn't mean it's necessarily safe. I know that like our PG-13 movies are our beloved Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Marvel, all of those films that we love and cherish and we will take to the grave with us are all PG-13. But there's a lot of other stuff out there too. So with stuff that when you're thinking of what's age appropriate for my kid, watch it, review it, and then put password locks on places where you don't want your kid to go past a certain point. For sure are, and I put locks on PG-13 stuff so my kids can't accidentally click on it.
Okay. So let me do the other side of the coin. So what would you say to somebody that has completely locked down their kids' phone? And now they're at the age where they're graduating
Thank
or
you.
they
Good
just
job,
graduated.
parent. High five. Sorry. Yes. And what else? So they're graduate. Okay. Okay. I see what
And
you're
so
saying.
now their phone's going to be completely unrestricted.
Right. Okay. So here's what I would do. I would go back in time a couple of years. No, I'm just kidding. So it's good to have your kids' phone locked down, but when they graduate high school, when they're going off into the real world, when they're an adult now, they're emancipating themselves from home. They're getting out. You don't want to just throw them to the wolves. Throughout time, you want to, in the nerdy world of psychology, we call it steps of approximation. You want to gradually give them more and more responsibility within their
Yeah.
smartphone so that they can handle that responsibility and not be overwhelmed with the stimulus, with the stimuli, and become addicted. And
Mhm.
so bit by bit, let's say, okay, your kid has a smartphone, but it's completely locked down. And that being with it completely being locked down, they also don't have social media. But they're getting, they're 16, 17, they're maybe a sophomore, junior in high school, and they're asking for social media. Well, here in 3 years, they're going to get it because they're going to go to college
Mhm.
and they're going to
Mhm.
get it. So let them create an Instagram account on your phone. And so that way, when they look at their Instagram on your phone, you're going to be sitting right next to them. And then you can kind of be there to help supervise and laugh with them and help them ingrain the philosophy of technology is a we thing, not a me thing. And also when you give them that account that's on your phone, create things with them so that they want to be creators and less consumers. Consumerism is great if you're
Yeah.
consuming the right things, but
Mhm.
teens left to their own devices or young adults left to their own devices without being taught anything, they'll just mindlessly scroll and the algorithm will do its dirtiest on them.
Mhm.
And so with your kids that are just leaving the coop, we need to slowly introduce more things into their smartphone repertoire
Mhm.
so that they don't become overwhelmed by it, so that eventually when they do leave the nest, they have those healthy tech habits already. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter if their phone's locked down or not. They're choosing to follow those rules. They're choosing to follow those values still. It's no longer rules, it's habits. It's healthy habits that they've been doing for a while now.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because when my stepson turned 18, he went off to the military like a month and a half later. So he graduates and he still would put his phone on the kitchen counter because that's where they had to leave it. And so one time I said, "Hey man, you're 18, you've graduated. Like you can sleep with your phone in your room now. Like, it's cool. Like we just wanted to make sure that you were getting sleep when you were going to school." And he was like, "Oh, okay. Um, I didn't know if I still had to follow rules because I was like living in your house. I mean,
Right,
you're no,
right,
you were graduated, man. Like you're good." But it was interesting though, like how he used his phone, and even like we just saw him, and my husband and I do use our phones. I have social media, obviously, because I'm an online coach
right,
and like stepmom coach. But my husband doesn't have. He does have social media, but he like never uses it.
right,
And we have that dynamic with my stepson when we are all together. Like we don't do phones at breakfast or lunch or dinner, or when we're all hanging out, like everyone's hanging out. Like we're not like half in, half out, right? Kind of thing. So when we
right.
saw him, it was the same thing. Like he's still, as an adult, maintains those boundaries with us, which I will say I'm
Mm-hmm.
appreciative because then you've got that quality time. But let me ask you this because we went through this. What do you do when your kid already has a phone and
Yep.
they've broken your trust?
Oh,
How, because of whatever they've done, whether it's they're sending pictures that they shouldn't be sending, maybe they've given out
right,
their address, maybe they're on
right,
websites that they shouldn't be on. How would you direct somebody, guide somebody to gain the
right.
trust of their kid back?
Okay, well, first, it's take a deep breath and don't lose your patooties on your child, um, because they were using the phone for what it was intended for. Those Snapchat, Instagram, though they were Snapchat was literally created to send nudes back and forth to each other, and you gave your kid the smartphone, but that being said, what can we do to gain our kids' trust back? We need to have a lot of open communication about,
Yeah.
okay, you came, child, you helped me come up with these rules. Well, let's say they didn't. Like, child, we have these rules in our home, and you sent a nude. And do you think that was safe? What do you think would have happened if that person you sent that image to would have posted that to social media, would have posted that to the internet, where anyone could have downloaded it? How do you think that could impact your life later on? Have a conversation with them about it, about the implications and consequences of that thing that they did, instead of just shaming them into, how dare you send naked pictures, you hellion, I will never trust you ever again. Shaming them will always only push them further away and
Yep.
make them rebel even more. Versus, can you recognize how this might have been unsafe? what do you think the implications are going to, the long-term things, how do you think that could affect you? Did you know that your employers can see stuff online? Do you think they would want to see those sort of pictures from a potential employee? Probably not. And so we're going to have to up some restrictions so that we can get to a better place, because we want to help you. We want to help you stay safe. And that wasn't safe. And so until we can make sure that you're going to be safe, we're going to have to put some different things in place. And then as over time, as they display that they're growing, that they're responsible, and you continue to have conversations about them, and you can see that their attitude and mindset is changing around the subject, then they can start to get, privileges, and you, like you said, loosening it up a little bit, giving it a little bit of leadway.
Yeah, I freaking love that because yeah, that's what we did too. We just had conversations. Like I want to know, I'm not asking you this question, but like with my stepkids, I would be like, I want to know what led you to believe that this was a good choice or this was a good idea to do
Right.
this, because then we can work backwards from there. So having said that, so now the kid's broken your trust. What are websites that you would recommend blocking on your kid's device? Like,
um
okay, top three.
top three. um Google. Disable the internet straight up. Safari, Chrome, the app itself is, because there are always workarounds, proxies, different
For
things.
sure.
If your kid has access to the internet, then they have access to breach your trust. And so there are multiple pillars within digital safety there, because with you have apps, we have restrictions within app, and then you have restrictions within your phone, you have restrictions within your browser, and you have restrictions within your router. Using all four of those, and then the fifth one is just communication, but using all five of those, you can help to prevent your kid from seeing unwanted stuff. um, there is one of my favorite go-to technologies. It's called Bark Technologies. They help to filter things, and even Apple has it set up so that if your child's phone is set up as your child's phone, and you could just say, "Don't let them access anything without asking me." And
Yeah.
so they go to a website, got to get permission from mom first. Mom gets a notification. Hey, they want to go to this website. Okay, yeah, sure. Or hey, they want to download this app. Oh, heck no. Nope, ignoring that one. But and so that's why I would say everything, like the internet in general. I don't know, like when I think of like bad sites, I think like Pornhub and all these like super like ugh, kind of sites. But it all starts from the Google search. It all starts from opening up your Safari app or your Google Chrome app. And so that'd be the first place to, I wouldn't, I mean, yes, disable straight up maybe, but bare minimum, just putting a little, a kind of a password gate on it so that they have to get permission from mom or dad. So mom or dad know what website they're accessing, why they're accessing it, so that, they're able to do what they need to do.
Yeah. I can hear people like, oh, you can't just disable their internet. True.
One,
That might be hard. Absolutely you can, but that might be hard. Does it make your life a living hell for a bit of time until like you're able to trust them? And yes, but a website that we had to block was Omegle.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Omegle is that, yeah, and that's actually app too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, Omegle's an app. Meet strangers online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Omegle. Yeah, we don't like that one. Where they're where the whole tagline of the platform is to meet strangers online. That's a big old nasty red flag. Um, there's also the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. They actually put out a list every single year called the Dirty Dozen list,
Okay.
where they put out 12 platforms that have been deemed as unworthy, basically, for putting children at risk, for exploiting kids. So those involve the last year, a lot of them have been the same. But those involve Discord, Etsy, Google, Kick, Meta, Netflix, OnlyFans. So probably right now, big red flags that a lot of teens might be involved in. Discord and OnlyFans are big ones that I would say parents watch out for. Discord is popular among the gaming community. Kids game like, hey, just hit me up on the Discord server. Xbox Live actually partnered with Discord, so you can just chat on Discord right there while you're playing. But a lot of times what will happen is predators will be talking to kids online while they're gaming and say, hey, let's go to the Discord server and keep talking. And then they'll get them to send sensitive information, whether it be nudes or even they'll send them pornography, links to it on Discord. The other one is OnlyFans. OnlyFans is like pimping made legal, basically. So OnlyFans is where creators are paid by the consumers. Consumers pay a monthly subscription to the creators for specific content. 90% of it is dudes paying young women to take their clothes off. And they're literally here in my home county, here in Utah, there's an issue at the school where literally there was someone who he's like, tell you what, I will set up all your OnlyFans accounts. You don't have to do anything except be in front of the camera. And then I'll give you a cut of everything that everyone makes. He set up a trafficking ring, online trafficking ring, basically, that high school girls participated in. And that's OnlyFans, basically. It is a playground for predators. Reddit and Twitter, they're pretty similar in the fact that they just don't have any filters on them. So you can't really, their parental controls are poop. And so it's super easy to access inappropriate material, pornography on those. They're like the evil cousin to Snapchat, which is already pretty bad. Snapchat has been on the Dirty Dozen forever. Because that is where children play, predators prey. Snapchat by default, it's public, and so that means that your Snap map is on and public, and the Snap map is accurate down to the house number.
That is so crazy.
And 90% of kids, they put their age in their Snapchat. And they also put their school in their Snapchat. And so Predator, all he has to really go on and do is just go to a Snap map and it'll show him, he'll put in his radius and it'll show you all the public accounts. And you can look up, well, look, there's a 14-year-old girl here. There's a 13-year-old boy here. As an experiment, just as for funsies, I created a fictitious Snapchat account. I didn't put any pictures of me. I said I was a 14-year-old boy. And I didn't even have an avatar. It was just a blank picture for my profile picture. It was a public account. And I said I was 14 years old. Within the hour, I had people sending me nudes.
Stop it.
I had people asking me for nudes within the hour of me creating that account. Just let that sink in, mom and dad. So if your kid has Snapchat, it's not if they've been sent a nude. It's when was the last time they have been sent or solicited a nude.
I like you added in solicited as well, because for sure.
Yeah. And so Snapchat has always been on my poop list. And it's always been on the Dirty Dozen list. And so we dislike that quite much. So those are probably my as we're talking about platforms, Snapchat, OnlyFans, and then what was the other one that I said? There's so many. But a good Snapchat and OnlyFans are probably my biggest triggers that I'm like, yep, hate those so much. That being said, I would always recommend go the National Center for Online Exploitation, NCOS. Their website is chock full of awesome information for you to look at all the different platforms and why they might not be safe for your kids. And we do put posts out, like on my Instagram and on Save the Kids' Instagram. We put out posts about those platforms as well, so you can kind of know why those things are inappropriate for kids and why they're not great for kids. But the NCOS Dirty Dozen list, it comes out every single year, and every single year everyone's mind's blown. Like Etsy, no one would think Etsy. Why would Etsy be on the Dirty Dozen list?
Is it because they have messaging?
No, it's because you can list crap for sale, like sex dolls.
Oh,
Um,
you know what? Okay. So I didn't even know this was like a year and a half ago. And somebody online had posted dangers of social media, whatever. And so I'm always learning. So my daughter's 4. My stepkids are out of the house. We are a long way from her having technology of her own or a device of her own. Let's start there.
right.
But I'm always learning. And the craziest thing I learned that night when I was going down the online world and the dangers of it at like
Hmm.
2 o'clock in the morning was you can buy, this is so weird. You can buy a sex doll that looks like someone. You can have it custom made,
Oh yeah. Yeah. On
which I
Etsy.
like my mind was blown. And
Yeah.
so people that even if you're just on the regular internet, there's the dark web and all of that, but like those people live on like just online anyway. And so the idea of somebody scouring somebody's pictures, like I could go through, I'm sure that you don't post your kids' online pictures online, but I could go through your profile, find a picture of your kid, have it sent in, and have a
Yep.
sex doll made of that. I was
Yep.
just like, what in the
Yeah.
actual F? Like, this is insane. Like, that is so my mind was just blown.
Yeah. So I just barely pulled up the 2023 list for the Dirty Dozen list. I'm just going to name off these 12 platforms for you guys.
Okay.
First off, and this is not necessarily in any order of like bad or good. There's just this is them.
Okay.
Um, so we got the Apple App Store because of its ratings. Things are rated for like 12 plus, 4 plus, but the ads are hypersexuals and suggestive with the Apple App Store. Then we got Discord. We talked about that. eBay is like Etsy. You have rampant child sexual abuse material. Used to be called child porn, but the word pornography, it assumes that there's consent, and there cannot be consent with minors. So child pornography is child sexual abuse material.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots of that stuff on eBay that they're selling. You can sell portraits and pictures of child sexual abuse.
Wait, I'm going to
Um,
pause you for just a second. So for somebody that's listening, it's also shortened to CSAM, right?
CSAM. Yep.
Yeah.
CSAM. Yep. Instagram's on the list for the same reasons. Lots of CSAM and lots of predators. It's really easy for a predator to contact someone on Instagram. Kick.
I can't believe
Kick
that's still
is
around.
yeah, it's an anonymous messaging app. Kick. And it is like it's predator paradise. It's so easy for it's another like kind of like Omegle, like talk to strangers, and it's horrible. GitHub is a new one.
What is that?
GitHub, it's a coding hub. So it's an open forum place where most of the code is for Microsoft's AI. And so people will go in, and so GitHub is where people will use the code for deep fakes for pornography. So like copy and pasting someone's face onto a pornographic video. They use GitHub is where they get the code for that.
Wow.
And that's owned by Microsoft. Um, and then we have OnlyFans. We talked about that. Reddit. We talked about that. Roblox made it on the Dirty Dozen list
Mm-hmm.
because it is literally just a digital world. You could go in. Actually, this is kind of interesting. We went undercover a little bit, and we discovered this trend called condo games on Roblox, or house games, where you go in a random house and they'll say, "Hey, do you want to play some house games?" And you go inside, and literally your little digital figures are on beds performing sexual acts. Like,
No.
because you can get them to bend over, and you can get them to like fall down and get up. So it looks like they're performing sexual acts with their little digital characters. Um, and it's just called condo games, and no one is any of the wiser. And then within those places, even if you step inside the house, everyone's like, "Hey, do you want to chat? Hey, let's get on Discord." And then it's a predator, and it turns into that. So Roblox is on the list for that, and it's crazy, crazy. Snapchat's on the list because it's Snapchat. We talked about that. It's just horrible. Spotify's on the list now because you can look up pornography on Spotify
I did
because
hear that.
the album covers are pornographic materials. And there's actually entire playlists that are dedicated towards sexual interactions. Like,
Stop.
yeah, like entire Spotify playlists full of just like sexual noises that are entitled really inappropriate things, like people having sex in the bathroom. And there's no restrictions for that.
Mhm.
no, nothing. Like if it's not labeled explicit, your kids can see that.
Yeah.
Twitter is like Reddit. We don't like it. And that's at the end there. So if any of you listeners were like, wait, we need to talk more about this. Go to NCO's Dirty Dozen list and you can see all of that there. And it actually goes in detail and pulls up evidence, and it has the letter they've written to those platforms and what you can do to try and make change.
Well, I will definitely link that in the show notes because I had never heard of Encos before. Um, but can we talk a little bit more about Discord? Because I think that it's just like, well, I'm using it, like my kid or step kid is using it for um gaming, right? Like how bad
Right.
could it be? But can you talk about the servers? Because I've done a deep dive in Discord too. My stepson used it for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But can you talk a little bit about like the different
Right.
servers? Because it doesn't mean what people think that it means if you don't know
Right.
anything about it.
So the servers for Discord are by invite only, meaning
Mhm.
that you have to get the link to be able to join that Discord server. So mom and dad, you can't join. Only
Mhm.
the ones with a link can join. And so if Timmy doesn't show you the link, you can't see what's happening in that chat group. A lot of times we'll have extremist hate groups that are within Discord chat servers that are trying to convince kids that like violence is okay. Predators will get kids to perform acts of violence against other people and be like, hey, oh yeah, someone bothering you at school. Here's what you should do. There have been school shootings as a result of Discord servers because of people's conversations that was happening with predators online. And so because and it's funny because Discord lists out within its within its policies that like, all right, hate speech is not allowed and you can't do X, Y, and Z, but there's zero policing.
Yeah.
There is zero, like there's no regulation. And so they can just kind of do and say whatever they want. The only sort of regulation comes from the administration of that particular Discord server.
Like the
And
person that's
so
running it. So just
the
to
person that's
clarify.
running it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So a server
the
is like a chat
administrator.
room.
Yeah, it's a chat room. It's a big chat room, and then your administrator is the person who runs it, the person who created it, who's in
Yeah.
charge of it. A lot of influencers, they create Discord servers for their community to talk to each other. And I know they have good intentions, but it usually just turns to a big bash fest where they single one person out and bully them. Um, and so that the scary part for me is that parents can't see anything
Mhm.
because you have to have a link to join. And so that is the scary part for me. Um, so yeah. What else other things was I talking about? I was
Wait, let me
looking
stay
up.
on Discord for just a second. So let's say that your kid is on Discord and you are like, well, I can't see what's going on in there. What if they have this kid's device? They can go into that chat room, that server, correct?
Yeah, yeah. If you have the device, then you can
Hmm.
open up the Discord and
Hmm.
see what's going on in the server. Um, and you could look it up that way. That being said, I would not be surprised if your kid deletes Discord from his phone or their phone, he or she's phone, um, before you snag it to look at it, because it's usually filled of that sort of information.
Hmm.
I was at a youth group once, and one kid was on Discord, and like I jokingly grabbed, like I was like, "Oh, what you looking at?" and grabbed his phone. He freaked out because he was nervous of what I might see that was being discussed on Discord.
Hmm.
Um and a big thing on Discord is the trading of pornographic images. They just post links to it. They post links to it and they're like, hey, check this out. And then like they're like, hey, I'll show you yours if you show me mine. And they basically just send nudes to each other with pornographic links. That again, no one knows of because you're not in the group itself and you'd only see it if you take the phone and see it yourself. Discord's a big one. And it enables predators to talk to kids. Like a lot of times they'll start at on gaming, like they'll be playing Roblox or even Minecraft. And then in the chat, they'll like say, hey, let's chat. Go to my Discord server. And it's just basically where they organize their victims. And get their trust, get them to send something inappropriate, and then exploit them.
Okay, so Let's say that your kid's been exploited. What
Mhm.
steps would you take? Or how would you guide somebody on
Oh
their
man,
next step?
if your kid has been sexually exploited, it, A, take a breath because you as a parent, it's not your fault. And
Mhm.
then B, it's not your kid's fault. It's the fault of that sicko out there on the internet that is trying to exploit young people, and also partially the fault of the platform that's allowing it to happen. Now, that being said, you need evidence. And so don't knee jerk reaction, delete any of the messages that were sent. You need to screenshot or save those as evidence. And so that when you get law enforcement involved, because it is something that law enforcement should be involved in if your kid's being exploited online, um, so that they can catch the perpetrators so that they don't groom any other children. There's this tactic being used by online predators now called sextortion, where they will get kids to send inappropriate pictures to them. And then they'll be like, hey, I'm going to send this photo to everyone you love unless you give me $2,000.
Mhm.
Or I saw one that was so far is like, I will send this to everyone you know unless you molest your younger brother. And it's like they're doing all these horrible things or they're like, I'm going to kill your whole family. I know where you live unless you do this. So they threaten them with, blackmail, violence, killing them, to get them to send more inappropriate content. And a lot of that is around messaging apps, and a lot of that's around Discord.
Wow, yeah. So first steps, take a breath,
Take a breath,
screenshot,
gather evidence,
gather
and then
evidence, yeah.
go to the authorities.
Go to the authorities.
Yeah, go
And
to
I
the
think
authorities.
because I've read a bunch of sextortion things too, right? Like it's one of those things that like I know happens.
Yeah,
We've already had some caliber of that, but I know that it happens, and knowledge is power, right?
yeah,
Like being ahead of it and knowing that. And I love that you said it's not your fault, like as the parent, because there's so much shame that comes with that. Like, how could I be so stupid to let this happen in my own house? Like, how could I have failed my kid like this?
right.
It's so like they're so like groomers are so good at it now, right? Like as
Oh
terrible as
yeah,
that sounds.
they're
But
crafty. They're not
yeah.
90% of your groomers. They're not your gross dudes in a basement. They are very charismatic adults
Hmm.
that get kids to A, believe they're 14 or 15-year old,
Hmm.
but B, even if they say that they're an adult, they just get them to believe they're a nice dude.
Yeah.
And so we got to teach our kids how to identify the nice predators. And the biggest thing is anyone who asks your kid to keep a secret from you is a red flag.
Yeah.
And if anyone asks your kids to keep a secret from you, teach your kids to let you know. If anyone ever asks you to keep a secret, come tell me immediately, okay? Because
Mhm.
it could be someone who's trying to hurt you, even if they seem nice.
Yeah. And I love that you address that it's not your kids' fault either because of what you just said. And, I think so much as a society that's still learning how to deal with technology and the dangers of social media, right away you want to come down hard on your kids. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, like have a conversation with them. Maybe you need to take a minute or a couple of days before you have a conversation about whatever it is that's going on so you don't lose it on your kid because
Yeah.
they already feel shamed, they already feel scared, they already feel all of the emotions, and then you compounding it absolutely does not help
No.
at all. So I love that you talked about that. And I think that you're right. Like I mean, I know that you're right. It's not going to go anywhere. Things are just going to get, I know that you like hearing
Right.
that you're right. But like I saw you smile because I'm like, oh yeah, I like that too. But it's just learning how to deal with it and
Well,
getting a collaborative effort from your kid.
well, here's the thing, guys. Even though there's a lot of scary stuff online, right? Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of scary stuff online. It has also never been a better time to be a human being.
Yeah.
Your kids have been born into the kindest era of human history.
And it's
People are
getting
more
better.
people are more accepting than they have ever been. People are kinder than they have ever been. And there is more and more good being put out into the world than there ever has been ever. Now, yes, there is a negative side to every coin, and there's a lot of scary stuff out there we need to prepare our kids for. But that being said, don't be like, nope, no one's going outside now. Can't live in the world, because the world's just going to go on. And so it's going to be okay. Something that I tell parents to use, and it sounds like it's kind of childish. Maybe it is, but it's use a no trouble bubble and tell it to your kids. Like, hey, this is no trouble bubble. It means you can tell me in the no trouble bubble, you can tell me whatever, and I will not get mad. I'll be stone faced, and I will just be like, okay, we'll talk about this. Okay, yeah, we'll get through this. Give me a second. There's a lot to digest. And so, for example, kids can come up and say, Mom, I need to use the no trouble bubble. That way you have your trigger now. You have been given your trigger warning of, oh, it's about to hit the fan. Okay. Put on my emotion regulating technology, stone face, don't even twitch. I got this. And they'll say, okay,
I'm deep breathing. Go ahead.
I accidentally looked at some pornography online, and then I looked at some more, not on accident, and I don't know what to do. And their voice is cracking because they're to the point of tears, because they're terrified, because they're talking to you. And because they said they needed to use the no trouble bubble, you know not to freak out right now. Because when your kid comes to you, freely admitting to you that they messed up, what they need right there and then, they need love. Mm-hmm. They need they need their mommy. They need their daddy.
Or their stepmom or their stepdad,
or their stepmommy, or their, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I say mommy because they need that person that they had, that, you know, that young child relationship parent. They need the nurture and the love right then. Mm-hmm. They need the response. Literally, when that happens, the first response out of your mouth needs to be, thank you so much for telling me. Mm-hmm. I love you so much. And this does not change that. We're going to get through this together. Then you give them a big old freaking hug, and then talk through it. But no trouble bubble is really good to help parents kind of have that trigger warning, so that you can like, all right, we will not react, and then hear what they have to say, so that you don't just lose your patooties on them.
Yeah, I love that. I never had like a name for it, but I would say to my stepkids, like, hey, I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad. Kind of like took that out of there. I'm on your team, but I can't help you if you lie to me. So whatever happens, we will get through it unless you kill yourself or somebody else. We will get through it. It might be messy, might not be pretty, but we will absolutely get through it. But now that my daughter's 4, I think she would think like a no trouble bubble is funny. And if I implement it now when she's younger and like we're not going through big things, it makes it that much easier if you lay the foundation.
Oh yeah, the earlier you do anything, the easier it becomes later on. And that doesn't mean it's impossible. I can just hear you guys being like, oh, but my goodness, I have a teen and we haven't done anything. This is impossible. No, it's not impossible. It might be harder, but it's hard. I mean, all good things are hard. Mm-hmm. But don't let that paralyze you from even trying.
Oh my gosh. I freaking love this. Like, that is so good. Like, no trouble bubble. I'm totally going to steal that. Thank you so much. Like, this is such an incredible conversation. I already feel like my audience is going to be like, hey, can we have that Nate guy back on? Mr. Webb, can we have Mr. Webb back on to like talk to us?
The answer is yes. Yes, you may.
And I just want to take a second to like appreciate the voice that you used when you came, when you're pretending to be the kid and you like came to the parent to be like, I looked at pornography, and then like your voice cracked. I was like, dang, that's really good. Like, you must have heard this a bunch of times, or you've like done this. I was like, wow, that's really good acting. Could be a voice actor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Where can everyone find you online?
All right, shameless plug time, guys. So
perfect. I love it.
I'm online on Instagram at bulliesbe.gone. I also have a website, natewebbspeaker.com, where you guys can request me to come speak to your school communities, give parent nights to come help educate you guys about those things.
I love it. Thank you so much. One last question I have for you is, was your personal experience the reason why you got into this?
Yes, absolutely. My personal experiences with, specifically getting bullied, but I also got involved with pornography online and things like that. And I started my Instagram and everything back in 2018 because of my personal experiences. And initially it was a selfish thing. Like, I was like, yeah, I want to, it's fun. I enjoy making content and I enjoy helping people. And then I will never forget one of my first assemblies that I ever gave here in Utah. After the assembly, it was at a middle school. This little sixth grade girl comes up to me, a little 10, 11-year-old girl comes up to me, and she said, did you mean what you said? And I was so nervous at first because I'm like, I said a lot of things. Did I offend you? Like, what did I say? I'm sorry. And then she's like, no, you said that everyone deserves to be happy. Do you mean that? Do you mean that I deserve to be happy? And I said, oh, honey, of course I do. You're a human. You deserve to be happy. And she just started crying and gave me a hug and said, no one has ever told me that before.
Oh,
And so that is when I knew that this is what I need to do for the rest of my working life so that kids can be prepared to be resilient in the tech heavy world, but also know just how amazing they are.
yeah. I love kids and I love that. And it sounds weird because of the context that we're using, but I love like the innocence of them. Like I love like the inquisitive questions like that. And
Yeah.
they genuinely
Yeah.
mean them, and
Yeah.
I remember when I had my daughter, there was a quote that I saw that said, have a kid and your life begins again. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
define life. But then now, that she's like older, I'm like, it's amazing to see the world through their eyes.
Yeah.
And I love little kids and I love the outlook on them, or like their outlook like on life and how they move through the world. And
Yeah.
there's that childlike play that I think we miss as an adult because we're so caught up in whatever is going on. And so I make it a daily mission, sometimes easier said than done,
Right.
to be playful with her. Or, I'm not really a yeller. I had a little bit of that growing up, or a lot of bit of that growing up. And so it's really
Yeah.
important for me to be present with her. Like the other night, I'm going to try not to cry telling you the story. I wasn't expecting to share this story. So here we go. Um, 2 nights ago, yeah, not last night, but the night before, she was like, I'm scared, like in my room. I heard noises or whatever. And so I was like, okay, well, we can turn a story on, we can turn your fan on, I can put some music on for you, whatever. And after I'm like, my throat is like tight telling you this. After a couple hours, it's same thing. And then she said, I'm lonely. And that just like cut, right, like a knife right to the heart. And so I said, well, do you want to sleep with me? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, just so you know, because I'm all about expectations, like let's set the expectations. We're not going to play. It's not playtime, because I am the fun parent. Like I'm the strict one, but I'm also the fun one. I shouldn't say
Right.
strict. I would say I'm the firm, like I've got expectations, but I'm also like the super fun one. So just so you know, it's not playtime. Like it's mommy's bedtime too. And nothing is standing between me and the sleep. Like we're going to bed.
Right.
So we get in bed and we're like laying in there in the dark, and I don't typically sleep with her. So I'm like, I love you so much. Like you're such an amazing daughter, blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't say anything. Not that I expect her to say it back. There's no expectation there. But then she said, thank you for not making me feel stupid about being scared. And I'm
Oh.
like, oh, like I'm like trying to not to try telling you this, but I'm just like, then I did squeeze her. Then, then we had a conversation for like another 20, 25 minutes about that. And I'm like, you're welcome. Like, I don't ever want you to feel scared telling me
Right.
if you're happy or you're excited or you're sad or you're scared or you're worried or you feel lonely. Like all of those emotions are just emotions. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just emotions. You can tell me
Yeah.
anything. Okay, mommy, I love you. Good night. And that's that. But
Uh,
like, but then like like tears are like stinging my eyes. And she's like, okay, good night. And I'm like, like they're so like
yeah.
matter of fact, but yeah, it's being there, which is really hard, especially when you have to like go and parent your inner child and like parent at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Kids are wonderful.
Yeah, they are so wonderful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was not expecting to share that story with you because it does not pertain to this really at
Yeah.
all. But
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
well, thanks. But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate your time. I'm sure I will have you back at some point. Stay tuned.
Yeah. I'd love to. I'd love to.
All right. Thank you so much, Nate. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world, and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.